Have any of you ever had a hard time when you've been trying to talk to someone who is grieving, or maybe writing a sympathy card with knowing what to say or with what to write? If you had a struggle, it seems like it's kind of common that that happens. And I know that I have been kind of stressed sometimes when I try to do that because I really don't know what to say. So it's a very common thing that will happen. And this time, I don't want you to raise your hand, but think about this question, which is, have any of you ever avoided someone because you felt discomfort around them when they were grieving? So I have. I mean, maybe a little, sometimes a little bit, but I don't always interact with them the same way as maybe I did before something happened. And one thing that happens when people have lost their loved one, a lot of people feel uncomfortable around them because they don't know what to say. And so these people are grieving, and then they have other people that kind of don't talk to them or maybe don't sit by them because, of that discomfort that they feel. And so it's a hard thing for people when they're grieving. So when our son died, um, just as a little background to help you to understand maybe what it feels like with grieving. So when he died, I expected that I would feel a lot of sadness and sorrow, and I thought I would probably have a hard time sleeping because I remembered when my sister lost her husband, that was a big problem for her, and I always have problems sleeping anyway. So I figured that would just be a lot worse, and that's what I expected. So I did have that happen, and it was significant, all of those things. But I also had other things that happened to me that took me by surprise when I was grieving. And some of the things that were the most difficult for me was that I just couldn't think, I couldn't concentrate. I felt almost like I had lead in my legs, like it would take me so long to do anything. And, we just seemed to move in slow motion, and everything was just kind of hard to figure out. I know it took Ken maybe about a year before he felt like he could be productive at work again. So it really lasted for a long time. And when people are grieving, they're all going to have their own little basket of symptoms that they have. So besides the ones that I had, there's a lot of other ones that are common, and everyone's going to have different, things that they're struggling with. But usually what we think is that what most people are feeling is maybe sadness and sorrow. But there's all these other things here. As you look at this slide here, are there any of them that surprise you? You'll see. Bill, did you have something you want to say?
I don't see anything there that really surprises me. I see some things that I didn't experience, but that doesn't mean they're not surprising.
Yeah, and I think sometimes you think others will feel the same that you felt, maybe, huh? Yeah. Anybody else have any comments about that?
I felt all of them. I mean, in different emotions.
And there's actually a lot more that people feel. These are just the common ones. Sometimes you feel kind of like you're going crazy because you're having all these other things happen, and it's really hard. Yeah. So, how do we mourn with those who mourn? Have you ever thought about that? How do we do it? What does that even mean? I used to think that maybe it meant that I felt grief that they're feeling. And how can you do that really? Especially, like when you don't know what they're gonna feel at all. So mourn is actually what it actually means. It's not the same as grief. It's often used interchangeably, but it's a little different. So mourn is an outward expression of grief. The grief is the inner feelings, and mourn is the display of the feelings. Okay, so like funerals are an act of mourning, wearing black. Crying is an act of mourning. So we can be participating with people through that time, and that's one way that we can be mourning with them. And I especially like the word with, which is a very small word, very common, and we don't think about it, but that's the clue there of how we can mourn with those who mourn, is being with them. This is my picture of a fixer. So this man is fixing the car. Okay, he's seeing the symptoms, he's trying to fix what's wrong. We often want to be fixers. We want to make people feel better when they're mourning, but we can't take away the pain that they're feeling, and they have to actually process that pain and go through it to get the healing. So the fixers have tools. I brought some of my tools. They don't look very comfortable, do they? Wouldn't want to get hit on the head with this hammer. Okay. Sometimes the tools that we use, they're not this sort of tool, right? We know not to hit people with a hammer. But the words that come out of our mouths sometimes are really hurtful. And I'll just give you a little example of a fixer phrase. And that is saying something at least. Whenever you say at least, that's like minimizing someone's pain. So like my mother, when I lost my son, she said, well, at least he wasn't married yet and leave a wife and family to struggle. And while that's true, that was good that didn't happen. It didn't make my pain any better. It didn't help me at all. It just kind of made me feel like, but I wanted him to marry. I wanted him to have children, So saying at least isn't a good thing. And there's a bunch of them on your paper that talk about things to say or not to say. On the other hand, you can be a companion. Now, the root of the word companion, the COMM, means with. Pan means bread. So a companion is someone that you'd sit down and eat bread with. So I would want to be a companion. And if I'm going to sit down and eat bread with any of you, we'd be kind of like at the same level. We wouldn't be trying to fix each other. We'd just be there having that experience together, right? So grief is an experience in itself. And when we're a companion with someone, we're just there with them in that experience. As a companion, we want to be accepting, non-judgmental, listen, love. Writing sympathy cards is a great companion thing to do as long as you don't put fixer language in it. So now we're here, we're going to do a little role play, and you can try out for just a brief time about using these words with people sitting by you. You can stand or sit, whatever you feel comfortable with, and just kind of practice that the person next to you has lost their loved one, Bob, and these are things about Bob you can talk about if you want, and kind of get used to doing this. So go ahead and do that for about a minute or two. Well, let's go ahead and wrap that up now. So I hope that this was a good experience for you and that maybe it made you feel a little bit more comfortable. And I just want to encourage you all to put away your tools to fix people. And instead, focus on being a companion with someone who's grieving and truly mourn with those who mourn. Thank you.